In today's video, we're talking about the first official Steam Deck OLED price increase, but don't sound the alarms just yet because there is a silver lining. And after that, it's currently Next Fest, so I picked out a few demos that you should definitely try before it's over. How's it going, everyone? As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. This is Deck Ready, my channel all about Steam hardware. I hope you are having a great week playing a ton of video games. I'm so tired. I stayed up till midnight to play Resident Evil Requiem, thinking I'd probably just play an hour and go to bed. I should have remembered how this went back when I used to do this all the time. I stayed up till 4 in the morning, which I have not done in a very long time. This game is amazing. It's living up to and exceeding my expectations, and it runs pretty well on Steam Deck. The default settings are mostly low, but low settings in modern engines look really good, and you can get a locked 30 FPS out of it at native resolution. So if all you have is a Steam Deck, don't skip this game. It's worth playing. I'm absolutely loving it from top to bottom. But yeah, with the intro out of the way, let's get into the first news story here and talk about this interesting price hike situation with the Steam Deck OLED. So I'm not necessarily surprised to see this starting at least somewhere in the world, because I covered this extensively with the PlayStation 5 last year, where, you know, they raised the price overseas, they raised the price in the United Kingdom, and then eventually, after a year or so, they raised the price in the United States when they released the PS5 Slim. That price held for a little bit, and then they ended up raising the prices again across the board. So usually when this stuff happens, it starts overseas and then it slowly works its way over to the United States. But thankfully, things are a little bit different when it comes to the Steam Deck. As for the price increases, it depends on the territory. In Japan, it's basically equivalent to $100 for both the 512 and 1TB versions. If you do the conversion, it's like raising it from like $539 or $540 to $640, and then $640 to $740, so $100 for each version, which honestly isn't that bad when you compare it to like all the other price increases that have happened over the past few years. The Steam Deck has gotten zero. When you move into South Korea, that's where things get a little dicey, I would say, because instead of a $100 increase, it's like a $200 equivalent increase. And then other countries are somewhere in the middle, like Taiwan, and people are expecting this to affect Hong Kong as well. So like, faced with this news that like AMD is giving up on the Z1 chipset, which is in a lot of handhelds that aren't running SteamOS, there's a news story going around right now that Resident Evil Requiem just straight up doesn't work on the Z1 Extreme with Windows. It's like 10 to 12 FPS while it's running fine on the Steam Deck. I don't think it's really all that bad to pay $100 more in Japan if it is in stock. Like, it sucks. It's objectively a bummer, but like, compared to how bad it could be just looking at the rest of the world and the rest of gaming hardware, $100 isn't the end of the world. You could get away with 512 gigabytes and a decent sized SD card until you can get a good deal on an SSD to replace inside your Steam Deck. I wouldn't pay $100 more for the 1TB because the storage being juiced that much to begin with is a little bit crazy. Like, knowing when this thing came out, the difference between a 512 gig SSD and a 1TB one wasn't necessarily close to over $100. So like, I just wouldn't buy the 1TB. I'd go for the 512 and get an SD card if I was in Japan. But for a 4-year-old device, paying $200 more just doesn't really feel like the smartest move in the world, just because I know that they say the Steam Deck 2 is pretty far out, but like, I feel like it's not far out enough where it's worth it to pay $200 over MSRP for a 4-year-old device. As much as I love the Steam Deck, I'm not insane, right? Like, I'm not just gonna say go out and buy it. And if you really wanted it, you probably bought it before this point. That's another silver lining here, that most of the people who wanted a Steam Deck have already picked one up. But speaking of silver linings, let's talk about the United States, because obviously as soon as this news went out, the doomerism, the black pilling started, and everyone's just assuming this is not far behind here. I'm not positive it won't happen here in the United States, but there are some promising signs. First of all, it's not Valve raising the price of the Steam Deck in Japan, Taiwan, and South Korea. If you didn't know, which I'm sure you do if you watch this channel, Valve doesn't actually run the operation in those 3 territories. It's a company that they work with called Komodo. And if you don't know who they are, they're the people who leaked the Steam Machine, Steam Frame, and Steam Controller about 2 hours early and really helped me out with my video. So I'm a big fan of Komodo. Valve commissions the factory to make the Steam Decks and then tells them to ship them to Komodo. And then Valve gives Komodo an MSRP that they should try to stick to with the Steam Deck. But since Komodo is handling all of the retail side of things in those countries, it's really up to them what they sell the Steam Deck for. And they said it's because of all the stuff you expect: part shortages, RAM shortages, storage shortages, supply chain issues. All of that is a factor, so that's why they're raising the price. But the blame falls first of all on Komodo Komodo, and second of all, on AI data centers and shipping companies and, you know, supply chain suppliers. I don't really know what to call that. That whole industry, that's what's causing the issues, and Komodo is the one raising the price, not Valve. So I think up until now, Valve has very clearly shown that they are going to work to not raise the price of the Steam Deck. They're doing the exact same thing as last time, where last year they had to take the Steam Deck out of stock when this RAM crisis went out of control, and they had to figure out if they'd even be able to get RAM in the first place. And then once they figured out how to secure it at a level or price where they'd be able to keep the Steam Deck's price the same, they brought it back. So if you ask me how confident I am that the Steam Deck price will stay roughly the same in territories where Valve is the one handling everything, I'd say I'm like 65-35. Like, I'm not positive, I'm not quite 50-50. I'm 65% sure things are going to stay the same. The problem is they're just going to be intermittently out of stock while Valve secures RAM, gets more Steam Decks made, they show up on the store, they sell out. It's going to be like, you know, how the refurbished store is run. But I hope there's more Steam Decks than there are that show up on the refurb store, because, you know, that's not really a good situation. Those things show up every month or so for 2 seconds and then they're sold out. And just like I do with the refurbished Steam Decks, if they do come back in stock, I'll include that info in a video and tweet it out on my Twitter, deck_ready. So make sure you subscribe and follow that if you want to stay up to date. But let's move on to the second news story here, because I've been playing a lot of demos on my Steam Deck. Usually Next Fest is really good, but the last one just didn't have anything I was interested in. And it feels like Valve took my criticism personally, or the developers did, because there are so many great demos in this Next Fest that it was hard to whittle down my list to just a few. The first demo that I really enjoyed is called Cargo Hunters. Now, I had never heard of this game before. I just saw it in the list. It looked interesting and I downloaded it, and it's like one of my favorite demos I've ever played, and I am a day one supporter of this game. If you're a regular viewer of the channel, you know I really enjoy extraction shooters, and on the Steam Deck, I like single player ones. The one that takes up the most of my time is Zero Sievert. I think that game is great on the Steam Deck, but I'm at the point with it where I've kind of done everything I want to do, so I was hungry for another one, and this one is filling that void. The setup is essentially like a really dark version of WALL-E, which is weird to say, but it'll make sense in a second. All of the humans have abandoned Earth, but they have a bunch of stuff on Earth, so they make humanoid robots and send them to Earth to loot Earth and bring the stuff back to space. And the fact that you play as a humanoid robot comes into play gameplay wise, because you can replace your parts. So if you kill a robot on the map, you can literally steal their limbs and extract with them, and those will give you bonuses into stats that you want to play with, like more carrying capacity or having more accuracy. There's tons of stats to dig into with all the different robot parts. And also you're looting things like, you know, tactical vests, hard hats. And since you're looting Earth, it's not like an Arc Raiders type situation where like the weapons are super futuristic or cobbled together. It's just like regular old guns that you see in action movies today. It has that little bit of grounded realism that like ties it all together. And the best thing about this game, it runs flawlessly on the Steam Deck because it has the vibe and aesthetic of old PSP games like Metal Gear Solid Acid or Metal Gear Solid Portable Ops. Like the way the menus all work, the way everything is blocky, the way everything has squares around it, the text is very like pixelated. It looks and feels like a PSP game, which of course makes it perfect for a handheld. And there's just so much content in this demo, man. Like, yes, you have to set up a custom controller profile or download one. There are plenty, but once you get that up and running, it is smooth sailing on the Steam Deck, and it really doesn't use that much battery life. So this is by far my favorite demo. The second demo I fell in love with that had a ton of content is Vampire Crawlers. I gotta be honest, this will come into play later. I missed the boat on the whole Vampire Survivors and all of its clones thing. Like, I play Vampire Survivors at the gym on my phone on the treadmill. I enjoy it, but I never got into Halls of Torment or any of the other spin-offs. I understand the addiction now after playing Vampire Crawlers, because it's like if you took the same formula of Vampire Survivors and made a classic style dungeon crawler that's turn-based. It has a simple card-based combat system where you have a certain number of mana and the cards cost a certain number of mana, and you get a damage bonus for going in ascending order from like 0 to 2. So I think that's awesome, and it just feels good to work your way through the game. You can get into a really good flow state, and because this is just a genre that's coming back, I played another one of these types of games called Dungeons of Dusk, and I feel like this one's for hardcore fans of the genre more than Vampire Crawlers. I gotta be real, I have no experience with these types of games, but this one took a minute to get my head around, but it's just great. The aesthetic is grimy, it's creepy. There's rats that you fight that are like photorealistic, and when they get up in front of you, it's like one of the first things to unsettle me in a game in a long time. It has a mix of ranged and melee combat. There's even like some light survival horror elements, and it rewards exploration inspiration. And both Vampire Crawlers and this game, I spent like 5 hours on each demo and didn't complete them. So I don't know if this is a good marketing strategy, but like if you're just looking for something free to get you through the weekend, every demo I talked about has infinite playtime, it seems like, which is great. And then going back to that Vampire Survivor style game, I really liked Grind Survivors. This one just popped up on the list and I decided to download it. I might have put the most time or second most time into this game. Imagine if you took Doom, Helldivers 2, and Warhammer 40K and mixed them with Vampire Survivors, and that's what you get. It just feels really good to play. It has an excellent cel-shaded art style, and it has a full-on Diablo style loot system, but when you bring the weapons back after a run, you can combine weapons to make them higher tiers. So if you have a white weapon that you really like, you can add a bunch of white weapons to it to upgrade its tier to green, and you can keep going all the way up to the max tier, which I think is sweet. Another cool thing that sets it apart is when you boot it up for the first time, it asks you if you want it to do the shooting itself or if you want to do the shooting, and that's presented as a difficulty choice, which I just thought was a cool way to differentiate itself from Vampire Survivors. And the best part is, despite the fact that it looks really damn good, it runs at a flawless 60 FPS, and going back to Vampire Crawlers and Dungeons of Dusk, those do too. So there's 4 games that look, run, and play amazing on the Steam Deck. Let me know what demos you like down in the comments below. Remember to subscribe, set your notifications to all if you haven't already. As always, guys, my name is Jimmy Champagne. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching, and shape on.